let's be quite frank here. That absolutely woeful performance at Liverpool came at the most opportune time for Ed Woodward to finally go on the board, Mourinho out, because you look at the run of games and you think, this is perfect. This is what owners and chief execs do. They shoehorn somebody out who's having a bad time, and they usually get them in when they've got a run of games. This has made me absolutely chuckle. Yes, you have to beat what's put in front of you. Two of the worst teams in the Premier League, by the way, Cardiff City, and the worst team, Huddersfield, the bottom team in the Premier League. And all I've read is graphics of Paul Pogba's goals and his assists, right? Should he not be doing that against the worst teams? Is this some great surprise?
Let me ask you this.
I mean, really?
Do they at least look like they've got more energy over the last...
Well, that's an indictment on everybody.
And we were coming from a low bar to start
I mean,
off with.
come on.
They look as though they're not chained to the post, is what they do.
Yeah.
You know, you're actually seeing players moving around. You know, you've got Pogba making runs into the penalty box. You've got players interchanging. That's not the things that were happening under Josie. So the one thing you can say is they're not chained down.
And we keep on coming back to this. So is that an indictment on the players, or is it an indictment on Jose Mourinho?
Absolutely not. If you've got a guy in Pogba, for example, who's one of his greatest assets is getting in the box.
Yeah.
But the way you set the team up stops him doing that. That's an indictment on the manager. Because you know, if he doesn't do what Josie tells him, Josie's the first guy, when he walks back in the dressing room, stick his finger right in his face and say, you do what I tell you, not what you want to do.
Well, the manager did make the atmosphere. There is not a doubt about that. However, people should stop getting ahead of themselves.
Cool their jets.
I mean, you know, one of the world's most expensive and talented midfielders, and where people want to eulogise about him pitching up against two of the worst teams in the Premier League. I mean, really, I'm not having that at all. I'm not having it. He should be doing that week in, week out with a bad manager or a good manager. Let's see what these guys have got when they've got a bit of a challenge in front of them. It's happy days at the moment, but let's see it when it's the real deal.
Manchester United with a comfortable win in the end against Huddersfield Town at home. The second win in a row. Well, it should be really. Cardiff City last weekend was a walk in the park. This game was a little tougher, a little more physical, but again, a comfortable win in the end. Two more easy ones, Bournemouth at home, Newcastle away. We could be talking about Manchester United winning 4 games in a trot since the end of the Jose Mourinho era. For Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and the players, this really is a confidence-building run before the big one, in my opinion, coming up, the 13th of January, Tottenham Hotspur away. Will they be ready? Certainly they should be confident by then, but will they have enough?
We're so stable and consistent and making a lot of points, and this season, especially Liverpool and Tottenham, they are so good. So at the end, today we finish the first round, and we have, of course, these last 2 defeats, but we have done enough points to be champion. So we have a lot of points we have done, but the problem is the other ones, they make a lot, and that is the reality. They are better than us in that moment. You have to accept it, and important is accept where we are. And
First 15 games, we were talking about this team perhaps being the best we've ever seen in the Premier League. A rather different tone being set over the last 4.
Yeah, well, that's just idiots getting ahead of themselves, isn't it? You know, coming up.
We're good at that.
Coming up with nonsense like that. I mean, I won't blame anybody here for doing that, but people do get carried away. This is just making for a great Premier League second half of the season, because Manchester City will bounce back. But as we were talking in the show, I was going to say end of the week. I forgot my time frame here. I think it was Christmas Eve. Yeah. Liverpool have got themselves into a position where I think they can consider themselves favourites, particularly if they win the big game coming up against Manchester City. The difference between the sides, and Stevie touched on it there, you know, they had Aguero has missed some games with injury. They've had similar possession to what they've had against most teams, but they haven't been killing teams off. And in December alone, they've lost 12 goals. Yeah. Right? You put that to Liverpool. I'll give you a reference. Tottenham, I think, have lost 8 in December, and that included a horrendous game at the Emirates where they lost 4, and Liverpool have lost 2. Right? There's the difference. Liverpool have lost 2 goals in December while still being as clinical and as efficient going forward. That's been the big difference. The Liverpool train it's chugging along still. It's chugging along. It's doing its job, and When it's not running particularly well, it's still solid. But Man City, when they're not doing it at one end of the field, it's affecting them at the other end of the field.
And now you've got Pep Guardiola coming out and saying, we've got to change the dynamic for Manchester City. Why? Why has it come to this?
You know, Manchester City, we hold them to such a high standard now because they had, you know, most managers will say, if I've got 8 of my guys at their best on any given day, we'll win.
Yep.
And Manchester City last year were having 10 on their day. And so they were so good and nobody could touch them. Now we're seeing a little bit of a drop in their level and everybody else, they don't have that aura around them. You know, last season, teams were going to play them and they were 1 down before they started. That's not the case because teams have been getting at them. Teams are more confident against them. They don't sit back and let them play because if you do that, they can hurt you.
Yeah.
So, you know, a combination of all those things, now Man City are being asked questions. And right now, they don't have any answers.
Son scored twice again after the Everton game. How do you describe his form at the moment?
Amazing.
Can you tell me a little bit more?
In 2 words, unbelievable. No, what I can say, I think Sonny is doing a fantastic job for the team. Hope that can keep that level. But you know, in a few weeks he's going to be away of Tottenham because he need to go to with his national team to Dubai to play the Asian.
In just 3 short weeks now, 8-11 on Manchester City now. You can almost get 2-1 on them with Spurs still the outsiders at 8-1.
Well, you talk about Christmas and New Year being huge. You think about the next 2 games for Liverpool, right? Arsenal and Manchester City.
Yeah.
I mean, bearing in mind where they are and where City are, I mean, Arsenal are fighting for the top 4. That's all they're fighting for. They've never been in the title race, but they could affect the title race. But when we talk about huge fixtures coming with little rest in between and such a busy schedule, you've got a chance not to kill Man City off, but to really put them up against it. And so it's going to be huge for Liverpool. But I tell you what, talking about Alisson and Van Dijk, it didn't seem it at the time, but the best thing that could have happened to Liverpool was the sale of Philip Coutinho and getting all that money.
Who would have thought that?
Because you don't get anybody for cheap now, but they have spent it well, particularly on those 2 players.
So now, Stevie, let me ask you, sitting here exactly halfway through the campaign, looking at those odds, how confident are you? Jurgen Klopp says they need tunnel vision to get over the finishing line.
And that's the key, because they're good enough. They've shown they're good enough. I mean, you don't go so many games undefeated unless you know what you're doing. And you don't have so many clean sheets unless you actually know what you're doing defensively as well. And Fergie's the man that said it. Defence is what wins titles. And the way Liverpool's defence is going, 100%, Liverpool absolutely right now are the favourites to get it.
Carlo Ancelotti distinctly unhappy, though, particularly with the red card, saying Koulibaly was subjected to monkey noises throughout the game. We asked 3 times for play to be suspended. They had announcements with the speaker 3 times, but the match continued. We keep being told play can be halted, but when? After 4 or 5 announcements? Maybe we have to take matters into our own hands next time and stop play ourselves. They'll probably make us lose the game if we walk off, but we're prepared to do it. It's not good for Italian football seeing this. Let's bring in Gab Marcotti to the show. Gab, your reaction to what Carlo Ancelotti said following the game, first of all?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that he came out and he took a strong stance on this. And you know, you can say that, well, they lost the game, it's easy afterwards, but I think it's important that people speak up. Now they have a protocol to this, just to be clear, and this is what he's referring to, is if you believe one of your players. Or if the stewards pick up that somebody's being subjected to monkey noises or racist abuse, the FA has people there who are supposed to, initially they're supposed to make an announcement asking the fans to stop, and then if it happens again, they have the power to stop the game. I think in this occasion, it happened, the Napoli's complaints happened 3 different times during the game, but evidently the referee or the fourth official felt that there was enough time between the 2 incidents that it wasn't obvious or whatever it was. It clearly clearly would have been a lot more effective if they had simply suspended the game for X amount of time until it ends. I think that would have sent a much clearer